Hi everyone, welcome to my channel created by Ruby. This is a tutorial on how I made this cake topper of Max from Secret Life of Pets. Firstly, start with some fondant and knead in some gum tragacanth or some tylose. Then you need to roll a ball into a cone shape, similar to this. Then you need to make some small legs for the back by rolling a small piece of fondant into like a leg shape, so you need like a thigh and a little paw shape, and then stick them on with water. And then the front legs are just made with some small thin pieces of fondant and just bend over the bottom to make a little paw. His legs are quite thin, so these are sort of quite spindly. And just stick them on with water. If some parts of this video do go too fast, you can always go over them again or slow it down. And then you need the head, and for this I just rolled it into like a barrel shape and then flattened out the forehead and then made a muzzle shape for the bottom of the head just by pinching it, and then just made sure it fitted the top of the body. You just have to keep tweaking and pinching to get it right until you're happy with it. And then I cut half of the forehead out. And this is so that you can replace it with some brown fondant to get his trademark patch over the eye. My fondant was a little bit dark, I must admit. I think I should have made it lighter. I should have kneaded in some white fondant to make it a paler brown. But this wasn't for a cake, it was just for demonstration purposes. So I thought it would do for this. And then I sort of just mushed it into each other. It didn't even need any water, it just stuck together. And this makes the patch part of the face. Again, you need to keep tweaking the muzzle part because as you're putting other things on, it makes the fondant sort of squish together a bit. And then I just sort of created a droopy eyebrow. I was copying off a picture I'd found on Google, and he had sort of a quizzical expression and he had a droopy eyebrow. So I was just trying to create that. And then I just made two sort of indentations with a ball tool where the eyes will go. Again, it's easier to copy from a picture if you have one. It's just a good guideline. And then when you're happy with that, I used a palette knife to indent a mouth. And this is the nose. It's just a small piece of black fondant. It is quite large for the size of his face. And then once I was happy with the shape, I just stuck it on with a little bit of water. As you can see, it took me a couple of attempts before I was happy with it. And then just made a little indentation where it was going to sit. Stuck it on with a little water. And then made two nostrils with the small ball tool. You can see I do fiddle quite a bit. There we are. And again, I went and put his mouth in yet again because every time I did something else it seemed to just smooth out again. And I've got half a cocktail stick, just put a bit of water on it, put the head on a little bit of the end of it, and then just squashed it down onto the body. You don't have to use a cocktail stick, you could just use some water. You might just have to leave it to dry for a little longer though, so it doesn't fall off. And these are just the eyeballs, just small pieces of white fondant just pushed into the eye sockets. Sorry it's not very clear, it was very sunny today, and with it being white fondant it hasn't shown up very well, I do apologise. And then some small bits of brown and small bits of black for the pupils. These are tiny, tiny little pieces. I find I have to chase them around my hand to pick them up. A wet paintbrush usually helps. And just stick them on. And pressing them in. Next thing is the ears. Small balls of brown fondant. You could roll these out and cut them out if you wished. I just sort of pressed them on the end of my finger into the shape I wanted. Tried it on the head, thought it's not big enough. Did it again till I was happy with it. A lot of things it's just trial and error. And then just a tiny little dab of water just to stick them on. And in the picture his ears were sort of folded over towards the front of his face. So I was just positioning them to look like the picture. And then I did the same with the other one, just flattened it on the end of my finger. Place it on the side of the head and then bend it over. And just get them into position so you're happy. And there's his ears. And then I just used a fine paintbrush with some brown edible gel and just painted on a couple of eyebrows. You could use some thin strips of fondant if you wanted to do that as well. And then, if that wasn't very clear, I'm sorry again with the light. This is just white edible gel colouring. This is really good for just putting that tiny little white dot on a black pupil to make it look like it's reflecting the light. And that was all I was doing there. And now this is just his brown patch around his bottom where his tail is. And I just smoothed it on. And then used a tool to sort of feather the edges a bit because it wasn't just a perfect circle. Then smooth it out again. And that gives his patch on his back. And I did the same for the small brown patches on either of his sides as well. And for the tail, just use a small piece of brown and a small piece of white, attach them together. And I just feathered the end with a palette knife just to make it look sort of like fur. And then just sat him on the top, and that was his little tail. This is his collar. Just made up some blue. And then cut it into a strip which wasn't long enough. Just tried it up against and then had to cut it out again. And then just made it a bit thinner. And then just attached it around his neck with a bit of water. Trimmed it at the back. There we go. And then just cut out another small piece which was to make the end of the collar that goes through the buckle part. And then just use a cocktail stick to put a couple of holes in. Stuck it on again with water. And then another tiny part to look like the part of the collar that's threaded through the buckle. And then I'm just mixing a bit of gold edible luster dust into some white fondant, and this is just to make the buckle part and his tag. You could use gold paint and paint fondant if you wanted to. I just had this, thought it would just be easier just to knead it in. And I'm just rolling out really thin piece of the gold and just shaping it into a buckle shape, like a D. And then this is just stuck onto the side. And then another tiny piece to look like the prong that goes through the hole. You can see that. That's the buckle. And then I'm just making a small bone-shaped tag. He has Max written on it. It's really fiddly, sorry, I went off shot a little bit here. The bigger the model, the easier this will be, because it will be a bigger tag. So just make a little bone shape just to stick on the front. And then the tiny little thin piece that looks like the tag, attaching it to the collar. Please subscribe to my channel if you've enjoyed this tutorial to see further ones, and thanks for watching again.